Korean Ferry, a public service announcement. Once upon a time there lived a little 20-year-old Korean fairy who simply could not help herself around foreign men. This fairy would lose her sense, and the men quite enjoyed this. The men came from an island nation just to visit this fairy and would often bring messages from a faraway world. The fairy would get so excited that her little tongue would drop out of her yellow head. The men would look at her in the eyes one by one and tell her that she would be paid for her devotion and dedication. The little fairy would wag her tongue and sit obediently for hours on end. Sometimes she would even say she was hungry, but the men would not respond. She often gazed up at them, wondering, "Why won't they feed me?" The men who ferried and flew from powerful nations could not feel her pain and mistreated this little fairy many times over. You could often hear her scream, "I'm hungry, please feed me. Rice is so expensive in this strange island nation full of jungle, and now I am down to my last won." However much the fairy begged the men, they would not comply. Pain instilled in her mind was matched by the hunger in her belly. Her little tongue was all they wanted, and she had no choice but to comply. She was used again and again while her hunger grew to the point that you could see it in her eyes. Once more she begged the prominent men for forgiveness, and once more her wishes were cast aside. These people had ill intent and crooked ideals. Men from wealthy nations were brought in there to fight with the requests of the starving little fairy. Power and dominance were used to keep the little fairy's mind in check. She agreed with what they did to her, even though she did not like it. More men came as she was trapped in the island nation, an unneeded woman who was also ferried here. As the punishment grew, so did how her long tongue stuck out of her mouth. Near the end, she looked like a dog, and screamed like one too. One day she was all used up. The powerful men were finished with her and her begging for rice. She now had a swollen belly and mutilated parts thereunder. The need for pleasure ripped her in two. She somehow managed to be ferried home, luckily not simply tossed in a pit like so many. She was so broken she felt wanted for lust. Her worn-out body and her little bruised and broken mouth had become a symbol of aggression brought on her. She was useless upon return. Townsfolk looked down on her because of her run-ins with many men in the island nations. She became an outcast. Her hunger increased, as did her need for care. There was no care for a stupid little flying fuckhead like her. She was all alone with memories of pleasure centers that haunt her soul. As she aged, her health problems increased. Broken alone, she often thought of the way those men treated her as they wanted. Now no one wants her. Not even a government will listen to her begging for rice. She is starving and the bowl is dry. Broken, she lay in the street begging the world for rice. She even screams sometimes at night when the thoughts of the men arise. She was used for pleasure by men who cannot touch her soul. They simply touch her body. As time passes, so does her age. Old and ugly now, her tongue still wags out. She can be seen in front of a downtown building with the sign that says how broken her life is. Once again, she is overlooked and shunned for her encounters overseas. Most think she deserves it somehow because of her wings and her tongue. The men who used her to feed their desires for lust forgot about her stupid little face. Time passes and memories fade. She cannot forget. Her body and mind are broken. One day she will die alone, starving, asking for rice. This is her destiny. No one wants to apologize and few offer help. All forget. The little flying Korean fuckhead has her wings permanently clipped by life. It's just a matter of time till she withers away, starving alone. Good night, ferry passenger.